Well, take a look at Prior Lake. Our drought is bad enough. It's been going on for a good couple of years now. But then look at Lake Mead. The drought out west, that's in year 23. And over the next couple of nights, we're going to look at why some are concerned their problem could become our problem.
We're going to begin by sending Chris Arapsky to Arizona and Nevada to see just how bad it is and the water wars already underway.
In Las Vegas, everything is excess. But 15 miles east, the most valuable resource of them all is getting critically low.
We can see like the white to dark, where, that's called like the bathtub line apparently. All of that was under it.
The water goes down, they build a little more ramp.
For 50 years,
Stop.
Bob Hawkins
Take it out.
and his wife Vita have been launching their boat into Lake Mead, the nation's largest reservoir.
Around 2000, it was full.
Never have they seen it this low.
If you get into an area where you're right beside a sheer cliff all the way to the top, when you look up, you say, wow, that's a lot of water missing. Okay, we can play now.
Anywhere you go, you can't escape the visual, that bathtub ring. For Bob, a painful reminder of what the lake used to be.
It hurts my feelings.
Why?
I was counting on this place being the #1 attraction in my life when I got to be this age.
A view from the water is powerful, but the view from above, going back 20 years, is alarming.
There are 7 boat launches going into Lake Mead. At least there were. 6 of them are officially closed because the water's gotten so low. This one on the north end of the lake is now
nowhere near the water. We walked it. What for decades was the bottom of the lake is now parched. It took 29 minutes on foot, which turned out to be
At least a mile to the water now.
The lake is filled by the Colorado River, which starts in the Rockies and flows some 1,500 miles to the ocean, supplying water to about 40 million people in 7 states and Mexico. Here's what happened. After the Hoover Dam was built during the Great Depression, Lake Mead filled to about 1,200 feet above sea level. All the way until the year 2000, it fluctuated, but stayed around that 1,200-foot level. But in the last 23 years, it's dropped, and dropped, and dropped again, now down to a record low at about 1,050 feet. If it drops another 100 feet, it would no longer power the dam, and about 50 feet below that is what's known as dead pool, where the water will no longer pass through the dam. Droughts are nothing new to the Southwest, but this drought, according to an article in Nature Climate Change, is the driest now 23-year stretch in 1,200 years. The researchers attribute almost half the drought severity to us.
If you think human-caused climate change is the only culprit here, you'd be mistaken. Authorities tell us that the river is also being dangerously overused.
We've gone beyond the point where voluntary conservation is going to be sufficient to do.
Ted Cook oversees the canal that transfers Colorado River water to 6 million people in Arizona. He says the river is overallocated, no longer able to produce the amount of water humans take from it. To try and prevent this catastrophe, this summer, the federal government announced what it calls an urgent action, cutting Arizona's water allotment by 21%, Nevada's by 8%, and Mexico's by 7%, starting January 1st.
We darn sure need to find a way to get significant reductions to everybody very, very quickly, or we're all in for a world of hurt and an outcome that nobody wants.
200 miles south of Vegas,
I love the farm.
Charles Van Dyke is trying to do his part.
I guess it's in my blood.
His 900-plus acres of alfalfa sits in the Palo Verde Valley. For nearly 150 years, the Colorado River has been liquid gold for this California farming community.
This one here has been in the fallow program for 1 year.
To the right is his alfalfa crop. On the other side is the land he's being paid not to farm by the Southern California Water District.
You lose money on this. Is it worth it to you to do that?
Yes.
More than 90% of landowners here have voluntarily signed up for the program. Charles says he's willing to conserve, but he hasn't forgotten who has first rights to the water.
I'd have to say, if you look at Los Angeles, I hate to say it, but the farms were here first.
He's right. This valley has grandfathered the first water rights of the Colorado River in all of California. But not everyone in the Southwest has water running past their front door.
You know, I've been doing this 20 years. Never did I think it would come to this when the water stops flowing.
Just outside Phoenix, in Rio Verde, Arizona, luxury has met calamity. Some 500 homes do not know where they'll get water come January 1st.
Right now, I hope and I pray for water. Yeah.
KARE Nabity built this home 7 years ago.
I have a 5,000-gallon tank buried here.
Relying on nearby Scottsdale to provide the water delivered to her tank.
But due to the drought, that option's now going away.
She says some neighbors have tried drilling wells, but haven't hit a drop. Now the community's scrambling to find another water source quickly.
That phrase, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
Oh, honey, all day long. And let me tell you, this community has fought over the water issue.
As the drought continues, a larger fight is on the horizon. Nature still gives a little back, but there's no longer a way out unless mankind cuts back a lot.
So would it be possible to divert water from Minnesota sources to help the West? They've tried it before. Water Wars continues tomorrow night at 10.
Wow.
Maybe we won't complain so much about our snow that we're getting.
No, we won't. You know, my family lives there. My family lives in southern Utah, and Lake Powell is also a dammed up lake that's just near Lake Mead. Same scenario, 200 feet lower than it ever has been before. I've been on that lake many times. I mean, it's a dire situation. Mm-hmm. It's in the news every single night in Salt Lake City and in Phoenix and in LA. I mean, it's a topical thing every single night. And there's all these different ways they're trying to preserve the water. But again, too many people, not enough water.
Yeah.
I mean, he told you how many people are depending on that one river.
Well, it was an excellent job by Ron Stover, the photographer, and Chris Rapsky. And do tune in tomorrow night to see how we may play a role in all of this.
Yeah, kind of tie it all in, and such a big story, that's for sure.
Do you think we're in a water war right now?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Think our drought is bad? Last night we showed you the mega drought out west that's drying up the Colorado River and the water supply to about 40 million people in 7 states and Mexico. Tonight, a notion that comes with a wave of controversy, diverting water from our sources here in Minnesota to help the West. As Chris Harapsky tells us, it's been tried before.
At the Desert Sun newspaper in Palm Springs, the pavement is usually hotter than the opinion section.
Opinion content usually doesn't do that well online.
But when a reader suggests solving a mega drought using your water, say hello to Pandora's box.
And this guy wrote in and basically said, hey, I think we could move water from the Mississippi.
Reader Don Siefkes suggested in July the answer to a parched Southwest: build an aqueduct diverting the Mississippi River 1,400 miles from Louisiana to Arizona. Within 20 months, he writes, the Southwest's water problems would be gone.
And then just my inbox is blowing up.
As a Wisconsin resident, I vow the Southwest will never get our Mississippi River water.
If California comes for Midwest water, we have plenty of dynamite in Minnesota.
A good month might be 100,000 clicks.
This month, they hit 3 million.
Well, that certainly struck a nerve. Interesting question, though. If somebody wanted to take water from Minnesota and move it out west, could they?
The business plan was to basically move water from areas of excess into waters of need.
Turns out he already tried. Dave Rangel is the founder and CEO of Water Train, and this, the only TV interview he's ever done.
The original idea was to drill into railroad property that sat above this aquifer.
You might remember this story from 2019. Water Train partnered with a railroad company in Dakota County and applied for an assessment to pump 500 million gallons a year out of the ground to be shipped by rail to paying customers in need out west, something he'd already been doing in Kentucky, Illinois, Ohio, and Tennessee.
But again, location was the determining factor.
Honestly, it was October, and I thought it was an April Fool's joke. It was just so beyond belief.
The idea shocked Dakota County Commissioner Joe Atkins and many others at the time.
And was it legal?
That's the problem. I mean, at the time, if they had applied for the right aquifer, it might well have been the kind of thing that couldn't have been denied.
The proposal sought to tap into the Mount Simon Hinckley Aquifer, the oldest and deepest groundwater in the region. Turns out that was the only aquifer specifically protected in state law, which says essentially you can only tap that aquifer if there are no other sources for drinking water. But for argument's sake, what if Water Train wanted to tap a different aquifer?
Was there a law in place at the time that said you can't take water from an aquifer and ship it elsewhere?
No, not at that time.
Barb Naramore, Deputy Commissioner with the Minnesota DNR, says Water Train was a wake-up call to better protect all Minnesota groundwater from potential export. So they went to the legislature and in 2021 passed a new law.
Which basically is that you can't ship water in bulk more than 50 miles from its source generally, or more than 100 miles from its source if it's being used exclusively for drinking water.
Water Train's take on all this?
Do you feel like you were villainized for that proposal?
To a certain extent, but again, it was a learning process. It was just a proposal, nothing transacted, and we quickly learned our lesson. The crisis is at our doorstep, and it needs an immediate response. Water by rail is that immediate response.
You could see his point.
No, I can't. I mean, we're Minnesotans, and if somebody's in need, we're going to help them. But it can't be at the injury to our own people here in Minnesota.
You might be wondering, what about Lake Superior? What if someone wanted to divert that water someday? Well, in 2008, 8 U.S. states, 2 Canadian provinces, and both federal governments created what's called the Great Lakes Compact. It essentially banned any diversions from the Great Lakes with very limited exceptions. So you can wipe that off the table for now, too.
So where do they turn? I mean, what is
the West?
Yeah, what is their answer?
It's a huge question. Everybody's pitching desalination plants as the answer because you can't rely on one water source for 40 million people in case of a mega drought, which is what we're seeing right now. So desal's an option. They're looking into it, and they're pumping billions of dollars into finding the right answers.
And it affects all of them. Those farms feed the country. So much fruit is grown there. A lot of things that we also need here are grown there. And
the winter crops. And listen, you go down there and they say, oh, well, you snowbird down here? Well, maybe you shouldn't come and sit here. You enjoy our sun. And it's a big fight. Everybody's pointing fingers. It's an
just a
interesting
fascinating story that affects everybody.
And we were saying earlier, we looked it up, 70 to 80% of all the Colorado River water is used for irrigating agriculture.
Yeah.
So when people say golf courses or you should have a swimming pool, it's like really that's a minute
compared to
use compared to the farming.
Yeah, but I have to admit I'm real glad that they passed that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that feeling of, whew, okay.
Oh, with Water Train?
Yeah.
It was very close, and I did not know that.
Had that guy picked a different aquifer.
He could have very well.
He just picked the wrong one?
He didn't know. Yeah, he might have gone through. We don't know. It would have to go through the DNR, but there's a lot of water.
That's amazing.
Our producer's saying wrap, but we could talk about this all day.
Yeah, I'm sure people will comment on this story online as you post it after the show.
Great job.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great
Chris.
job, Chris.